Alright you guys, welcome to my video. Today I want to talk about the virgin birth and how the Mashiach, the Jewish foretold Mashiach, must be conceived, okay? I want to dig into the New Testament and I want to dig into the Old Testament scriptures. Now I'm at my studio and it's totally filthy in here because I am a stone artist, stone carver, so I got dust everywhere. Anyway, so I can't like put stuff down too much and have a nice area here. But anyway, I'm trying to super nice, that is. Anyway, so I thought this is the good background and just want to spit this out while I'm talking about it. Today is February 26th. And so there are a few people that are commenting on my short videos and they literally have no idea what they're talking about. Now, I don't blame them because they're using the New Testament, okay? And what it says, then they go to the Old Testament, like Isaiah 7, and they see exactly a verbatim type quote found in the New Testament. However, I don't know where I'm going to go, but anyway, what they're doing is changing the Jewish text, literally, to reflect Christian theology, and we're going to get into that, okay? So stay tuned. I want to see if I can find or stay on some main bullet points, like what is said in the Jewish scriptures, how the Messiah shall be conceived, okay? Because it's very clear. Then we're going to dig into Isaiah 7. Then we're going to dig into Paul a little bit because he's the first author of the New Testament. Okay, but there's other passages in the New Testament that shows that the word that Paul uses in a particular verse is the same word to only reflect in the context, that is, only in the context, is referring to an actual physical, making out with somebody and get an actual kid out of it, okay? It's an actual sexual union coming together, okay? Other points, you can see the context. It's metaphoric or a similarity, like say, oh, I'm going to throw my seed on the ground. Well, what's the context? Is it talking about human seed? Well, what else do you have to say with it? Well, if you say, well, I'm going to go out and plant some corn, I'm going to go through, then you come to the next sentence, I'm going to throw my seed on the ground, see what happens. Well, that's the context. It's talking about planting. But when you're talking about people, okay, it's talking about physical activity of sex, okay? So that's what we want to get into, okay? So where should we start? Let's look at, I guess we can look at the New Testament. According to now I'm going to also get into the genealogies too, not in high detail. I just want you to look this up yourself. I don't have time. I got my other phone right here where I can look stuff up real quick, but I'm trying not to do that. So it's all based on memory, okay? I mean, I have like notes like on my notepad and they're all gone already. But I got some notes here, to look up to help me out to, because I haven't memorized those. But anyway, so according to, let's start off with the New Testament and the virgin birth and the genealogies, okay? So I'm just going to start off with that. I don't know if I want to just talk about the Old Testament first, but because I kind of want to do it as more of a shock value. So if I do the Old Testament first, won't give you that punch in the face. So anyway, the New Testament in Matthew chapter 1 and in Luke 3, it gives two separate, radically different genealogies, okay? Totally different. Now, Christians, street preachers, that is, will say, I'm saying this for a shock value, okay? Because I've heard it dozens and dozens. I've been doing this for about 40 years now. 40 years, okay? So I've heard it time and time again. Now, if I don't look my age, I'm actually 56. So I've been dealing with this for a long time. I've been Jewish Orthodox for most of my life, okay? And most Christians who go out witnessing don't know what they're talking about. Literally, they don't know what they're talking about. Even preachers in the pulpit. Okay? So they will say, let me get some water more, I'm getting dry now. They will say, because they will see if they do any type of studying at all, they will see, I mean, they just kind of quick glance at it without actually reading the details of it. They'll say the genealogy found in the Gospel of Matthew is the genealogy of Joseph, whereas in Luke's book, Gospel, the genealogy is of Mary. Okay? That's all easy to resolve, right? Okay. Well, that's fine if you're just a street preacher and you don't know nothing, you're just ignorant as can be, and you just absorb it like a sponge, and that's how it goes. If you look in my short videos that I make on YouTube, you can see the comments over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, I've posted the same thing several dozen times already throughout the years. Okay, me posting. And I had a radio show, and I got a bunch of backlash from the preachers that follow me the next week. Okay? They say that they just slam it. But the same thing, they don't literally look at their own book. It's amazing how, slap in the face, ignorant. Wake up, read your own book, see what it says. Okay? Okay, let's get to this street preacher mythology. That's what it is. If you look in the genealogy found in Luke, okay, that genealogy is point blank of Joseph also, okay, but everything is radically different. Everything is radically different. Joseph's father is different, Joseph's grandpa is different, and coming from the David, if you just start from David's side, it's totally different. The Messiah, and this is why I'm going to flip into the Old Testament. The Messiah must absolutely come from Solomon. Period. Point blank, period. Okay? But who does Luke have there? He has Nathan. Why do you have Nathan there? Okay? It's a whole different genealogy. So Christians will say, well, this is of Mary and this is of whatever, like I just said. But if you look in Luke itself, it says it is the genealogy of Joseph. Joseph is listed there. He was the son of so-and-so, and he was the son of so-and-so. It is Joseph's genealogy. Mary is nowhere mentioned. Okay, it would be helpful if she was actually there. I mean, unless Mary is one of these modern trans people, and she's the son of so-and-so. Okay? I'm being humorous on purpose. Because that's how absurd it is. Okay? She is not listed in the genealogy. And what I find is absolutely baffling, that Luke has Nathan as the son of David. If you do your homework, it seems to appear that there was a son named Nathan, not talking about Nathan the prophet. So it's been a long time, but I believe I found that. So anyway, let's not discuss that. But regardless of that, I guess I have to discuss a little bit. So anyway, the prophecy is he has to come through Solomon. Says it so many times. It says in 2 Samuel 7, 1 Chronicles 17, and chapter 22 as well. Okay? Period. Point blank. So, what I find interesting with Luke is if you follow the Nathan route, all of a sudden you'll bump into Shethiel and Zerubbabel. Well, these people are not from Nathan. So even though this absurd list from Nathan exists, all of a sudden he throws in Shethiel, or however you say his name, I don't have the Hebrew in front of me, Shealtiel, and Zerubbabel. These two people come from Solomon, not Nathan. It comes from Josiah, actually. Josiah, one of the last kings of Judah. That's his descendants. Okay? Shealtiel and Zerubbabel are the descendants of Josiah. Yet Luke has them mentioned in there. Then all of a sudden you get blah, blah, blah down the line. Then you have Joseph. Dude, you can't have two family trees totally separate and have the same great-great-grandson and come back again and have another exact same son. You can't do that. It's impossible. Not when you're following the father's line, the father's lineage. Joseph was the son of so-and-so all the way back to David. Then you go to Matthew, you know, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, blah, blah, blah. Then David, Solomon, Rehoboam, and things like that. Okay? So, you cannot crossbreed. So, first of all, now to go back. So we can see that the two genealogies are both of Joseph, and they totally contradict each other. Period, point blank. And Christians love to tout, tooting their horn, that the New Testament is inerrant, no errors whatsoever. You would have to be, I don't know what you want to say, stupid, blind as a bat, not to see this. Okay? Second of all, if you read Luke chapter 1, it appears Mary is a Levite. Why? Because it says Elizabeth was her cousin, and Elizabeth was of the house of Aaron, the high priest. You know, Aaron was a Levite. So if Elizabeth is a cousin, seems like Mary is of the house of Levi. But let me say this. So that's that, okay? Now I'll get into like Matthew in a minute. You know, because Luke will say something, if I remember right, according to the scriptures, but he doesn't cite any scriptures. Well, Matthew does. And he doesn't say the verse, you know, because they didn't exist then. He doesn't say who, which prophet, didn't say any of that either. He just says, behold, a virgin shall conceive and give birth to a son and call him Emmanuel, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So that is referring to Isaiah chapter 7. Okay? Now, if you look, I want to back up a little bit. Or just stay in these early chapters of Matthew. Matthew is literally pulling your leg about so-called fulfilled prophecy. I mean, seriously. He either takes something out of context, like if this is the whole list of what's being said in the Old Testament, he takes one line out of there, doesn't care about the context, what it's even referring to, and runs with it and creates a whole narrative based on that one line, okay? Seriously. But it's quite amazing. So let's give you some examples. It says, okay, they go down to Egypt, right? And then they come back. And they finally settled in Nazareth. And it says, and he shall be called a Nazarene, according to Scripture. There's literally not one single verse in all the Old Testament that says he will be a Nazarene. A context of the town of Nazareth. Now, Christian apologists will like to try to twist your mind in a pretzel to get what they want out of it. They don't take the literal words for what the page actually says. They have to redefine words because they cannot deal with discrepancies. Okay? It's amazing. Hold on a second. So, it's amazing. So they'll say, well, if you look in Isaiah chapter 11, behold, a branch shall stem forth out of Jesse. I'm paraphrasing, okay? Well, that branch in Hebrew is basically Nazar. I don't have it in front of me. Anyway, and Nazar. So it sounds like Nazareth, right? No, not at all. Because Nazareth was an actual town. And Nazar is branch, like someone's like offshooting from Jesse. Okay? So let me be sure. Hold on, and I'll look it up just in case I'm wording it wrong. Okay, hold on. All right, it says here in Isaiah 11, verse 1, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The word branch there, the ve is and, okay? So you can ignore that. So, netzer, that means branch or offshoot. That's all it means. It's just talking about his descendant, okay? That's all. It doesn't mean he's going to be a Nazarite or or like a Nazarite vow, or it's not even talking about some town that did not even exist during Isaiah's time frame. Okay? It's not talking about this at all. Excuse me. Someone's opening up a garage door behind me here. I'm at my studio, so I got a lot of shops here. So you see what I'm saying? So that's a totally 100% invented prophecy. The next one, it goes like, when Herod supposedly killed all these kids 2 years and younger, and it says, Ramah has lost her children, or is weeping because she lost her children. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. And that reverts back to Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah. That has nothing to do with Jesus' time frame. Okay? It's talking about the Judeans going into Babylonian captivity. That's what the context is. So like I said, here's a whole chapter of stuff, and Matthew will take one little snippet, take it out of context and run with it and create a whole new narrative out of it, which is not even accurate, okay? So it's like totally bogus. So when it comes to like Isaiah 7, behold, a virgin shall conceive and give birth to a son and call him Emmanuel. It's not what Isaiah 7 even says. It's nowhere, he's taking it, it's not just taken out of context. It's not even what the verse even says. It's not talking about the Messiah. It's not talking about God to be born among mankind. Excuse this noise. This guy's lifting up his garage door. Hold on. Irritating. So, thought I had a good quiet day here at the shop. It seems like everybody's here. But anyway, so what I was going to say is, it's not talking about a Messiah. It's not talking about God being born in the flesh. It's not even talking about a virgin, and it's definitely not talking about Jesus' time frame. Okay? Isaiah 7 is very vividly clear if you actually read the whole thing, not just take one little line out of context, and then what Christians will do, they mistranslate the actual Hebrew text. Okay? To make it, what would be a proper word? To make it fit Christian theology. Okay? They're retrofitting it. You can't do that. Keep it how it is, and you can see just how false Matthew is. Okay? Just leave it alone. So what does it say? The whole chapter says that 2 kings are bothering the king of Judah. Now this is around 740 BCE. Okay? 2 kings, Pekah and Rezin. The king of Israel and the king of Aram. Or we might see Syria in some translations. Okay? These 2 kings are bothering the king of Judah. They basically want to knock him out, take over his country, and blah, blah, blah. So Ahaz is like sweating bullets over this. So Ahaz goes down by the command of, the Lord, and basically comforts him and basically says, I'm paraphrasing, don't worry about it. I got your back. Don't worry about them. And so Isaiah eventually says, well, ask for a sign. He says, no. And so he basically says, fine, I'll give you a sign, okay, to make sure that God, or to prove that God is with him. Okay? And this is the exact wording. I got it right here. I'll just read it to you. Okay? It says, Hine ha'alma hara veyo ledet ben vikarat shemo Emmanuel. Okay? And so what it basically says is, the whole thing is what the New Testament says. It says, in the New Testament, it says, behold, a virgin shall conceive Okay, shall conceive, meaning future tense. That's not what the Hebrew says at all. It's present tense. It says he named. That means behold or look, pay attention. That's what it means. Ha-alma, it means the young woman. Okay, that's all it means. Doesn't mean virgin at all. Betula means virgin. You'll see this word in like Isaiah 63, if I'm not mistaken. I could look real quick. Let's see, and I'll read it to you. Let's see what it says here. What do I got here? I don't want to mess up what I got here. All right, I could change that. Let me look up Isaiah 63. Let's see. Looking right here. Just for you guys. Is it right here? Maybe it's 62. It is 62. Hold on. Let's see. I always get confused here. Well, oh, here it is. Isaiah 62, verse 5. Okay? For as a young man marrieth a virgin, so shall thy sons marry thee. Okay, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to know the rest. It says, for as a young man marrieth a virgin. Okay? And that word there is betula, the word virgin. That is point blank, because men like to marry virgins, and that was kind of the whole deal back then. Virginity was highly prized. Okay? So the word in Isaiah 7:14 is not betula. It is alma. Okay? It strictly 100% means young woman. That's it. Nothing more. Young women could be a virgin, and they could not be a virgin. They could have already a husband, already had kids. Okay? This means young woman. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay? So it goes ha-alma. Okay? It says hara. Hara does not mean will get pregnant. It means is already pregnant with child. Okay? Already. It's present tense. That's why the whole thing of the New Testament is totally bogus. It says hara, and then it says and veyo ledet, and it says and she shall bear a son, or give birth to a son, I should say. And it says ben son, and vekarat, and shall call, and Shemo, his name, Emmanuel. Okay, Emmanuel. So that's it. That's it. Point blank. Okay. So so you can reword it. You can say it in a variety of ways. It says, "Behold, hey, pay attention. This young woman that is pregnant shall give birth to a son, and call his name Emmanuel." So she's already pregnant. Or you could say, this young woman that is with child shall give birth to a son. Okay, so that's all it means. So if you read the context, the prophecy keeps going. It's just not like the prediction, because that's 50% chance. So it's going to be a son or a girl, Hey, let's be real. You see what I'm saying? So if you read the rest, it says, before, and I'm paraphrasing just to make it more understandable, before this child reaches about 5 years old, the two kings that you are worried about shall be dead. And this will be the proof that I am with you. And that's, i.e., the reason behind the name Emmanuel. Okay? God, or El, shall be with you, or with us in that case. Meaning the kingdom of Judah. Christians taint it and will think, well, it means God with us, so God is going to be born. It's nothing of the sort, nothing. Okay? So if you look in the history books, this is literally what happens. Assyria came down because that's how God was going to deal with it. Syria was going to come down and knock out the two kings, and so Judah will be saved by the hand of God through Assyria. Okay, knock them out. And that's what happened. Assyria knocked those two kings out. And so Ahaz had nothing to worry about no more. At least from those two. Okay? So you can see that Matthew has no idea what he's even talking about. Constantly over and over and over and over again. Matthew invents prophecies out of things that were not even existing, like the Netzar thing, being a Nazarene. There's no prophecy saying he's going to come from a town or have a Nazarite vow. Okay? Nothing. And so, also, the Rama thing has nothing to do with nothing. And so now the virgin birth. This whole narrative is 100% false. Okay? Now, if you know Jewish scripture at all, any of it, if you actually read it, now most Christians do not read the Bible. Or if they do, they skim and don't comprehend what's being said because they're filtering everything they read with the New Testament. And that is the big problem there. Oh, I see Jesus here. I see Jesus there. I see Jesus there. Messianic verses are point blank clear as ever. Okay? They're easy to understand. They're not metaphoric. You don't see all this stuff. Okay? No. It's point blank clear. In Genesis, see if I can remember. Genesis 49, when talking about Judah, and the scepter shall never leave from between the legs of Judah, till Shiloh comes. That is talking about the Mashiach. So he must be a son of Judah. Okay? In 2 Samuel chapter 7, it's all the same. So 2 Samuel 7, 1 Chronicles 17, and 1 Chronicles 22 all claim the Messiah must be a genuine descendant of David and Solomon. Solomon is actually mentioned by name and now if you read the other passages, what I just said, we know it's talking about Solomon there. But Solomon's picked off by name in 1 Chronicles 22. Okay? And so we see the Messiah must be of David and Solomon. Now if you go to, it's redundant, but if you go back to Isaiah 11, the branch coming out of Jesse, also he must be of Jesse. Okay? So it's very clear. And it is vividly a sexual union offspring. A genuine son that sits on David's actual throne. Period. Okay? Now, if you go to the New Testament, only 2 books. I'm going to throw in some hoorah to make you think. If you look in the New Testament, now I'll get to Paul in a second. Okay? If you look in the New Testament, just in the 2 virgin birth accounts, it seems like, just by appearance, everybody knows who. I really don't need to say this, but I kind of have to sometimes to kind of put the knife in the side just to show inconsistencies. Okay. In the 2 virgin birth accounts and the things that follow, everybody seems to know Jesus is the Messiah, right? The Magi, know him. The shepherds in the field know him, and blah blah blah. Okay, prophets seem to know him. Yet, all of a sudden, he's forgotten. Seriously. You're talking about the foretold Messiah. The long foretold Messiah. The one who conquers the enemies of Israel and brings all the Jews back to their homeland. This is this guy. Okay? Yet, he has no following. Literally, no one knows who he is. No one. The time of his baptism, no one knows who he is. He doesn't have any following, no disciples, and no one has a clue to who he is. Okay? No one does. And if you were to crossbreed the books, John doesn't even know who he is. And he's supposed to be the cousin. And so how does that work? That's if you crossbreed. I don't like crossbreeding the books because I think each author should speak for themselves in his way because that's how It worked back then. The community only got one book. They didn't get a whole Bible. Hey, let's put them together. They didn't do that. That came later. So, but if you were to crossbreed the books, it really fouls it up. Because not even John, who is a cousin, knows who he is. I myself did not know him. Like, well, how does that work? Because your mom sure did know him. And, so, just put 2 and 2 together. That's if you crossbreed it. But I don't like crossbreeding. But going back to what I was saying, if you look in these 2 virgin birth accounts and the things that follow, everybody seems to know him. Then when it comes to the baptism, no one has a clue to who he was. He has no following, nothing. This long foretold Messiah. Of course you'd be following him as a kid. You want to see where he goes, what he does, what he says. Okay? You're waiting for him to pick up a sword and start conquering. But this never happens. And he has no following. So we see this whole virgin birth had to be added. Because it doesn't make sense. And what's so interesting, if you look in early Christianity, there's several early Jewish sects out there, groups. One of them is the Ebionites. Okay? They rejected the virgin birth. They didn't believe that. They believe he was a genuine son of David from a sexual union. Okay? You got to remember, Jesus was not the only dude that was a son of David. There were hundreds of them. Okay? You got to remember, Solomon had a lot of kids. Okay? So you got to remember that. But nonetheless, it narrows it down when you have to be a son of David, son of Solomon, and so forth. Okay? Down the line. So, anyhow, what was I going to say? So you can see that it was added. Because it just doesn't make sense. Well, everybody knows him, then all of a sudden no one knows him. So it would seem to appear the regional scriptures started at the baptism. That's it, when he supposedly came on the scene. And what's so interesting is the Ebionites, like I said, did not believe in the virgin birth. They believed he is conceived naturally. I want to delve now into Paul for a minute. Paul, you don't know much about him or the history of the Bible itself. As many people just read Matthew and just assume Matthew wrote Matthew, Luke wrote Luke, and so forth. The 4 Gospels were literally written by anonymous authors. We don't know who they are. The titles like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were added later. Okay? There's no names on it. Okay? And nothing's in the first person. Only 2 times does John speak in the first person. And the word is we. Okay? You see this in the last 2 verses. So it tells you that the author is not John. Okay? It says, and we know that his testimony is true. So whoever the we is, it's definitely not John, because the author, or authors, is only merely claiming to have seen some type of writing by John. But the theology doesn't even fit. And everything in John fits more Pauline doctrine. Okay? Literally, seriously. Now, you're not going to pick this up unless you were very well trained in Scripture, very well read up and learned in it. I mean, seriously, it's really following Pauline doctrine, but more advanced or evolved, okay? Because in John, he becomes God. Paul doesn't believe Jesus is God at all. I'm sorry for the head smacker. I don't want to get into that. I want to stay focused on the virgin birth for a minute. So let's get back onto that. So what I was going to say, the first author of the New Testament, like I was saying, if you know your history, was not the Gospels. It was actually the epistles of Paul. Paul was the first author of the New Testament. All the Gospels, all 4 of them, came after Paul's death and after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD. Okay? Paul died in the 60s, according to myth and legend. Okay? Paul says something totally different regarding the virgin birth. Okay? This is where I need my notes, not not right away, but the other verses. Let's see if I have my notes real quick. There you go. Anyway, according to Romans chapter 1, verse 3, let's see if I can remember without getting the pad out. I don't know if I can even remember. Concerning his son, Jesus Christ our Lord. It says, of the seed of David according to the flesh. Nothing is metaphoric there. It's all literal. Take it literally as it says. He is of the seed of David according to the what? Flesh. Meaning, that's a sexual union. And the thing is, the Greek there is sperma. That's what it says. He is of the sperma of David. So Paul is telling you the word, and sperma is where we get the English word sperm from. So Paul is very, very clear in what he's saying. He uses the same, Paul uses the same wording when he talks about himself. He goes, let's see. He goes, in Romans 1, I didn't put the verse here, but anyway, it says, I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the sperma of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So that right there is literal. Okay? Paul is being literal, and that's in the exact same book. Okay? Also, Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 11, are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. This is, what did I just say? 2 Corinthians 11, verse 22, okay? Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they of the sperma of Abraham? So am I. Okay? There you go. Then Timothy, now most scholars, legit scholars, know that 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus were not by Paul. Whoever it was a forger who was pretending to be Paul because there was a power struggle, and so it's always good to, to lie, to say it's written by Paul to make people behave a certain way. Oh, this is an apostle, we better do what he says, type of thing. So don't take that literally when I say it's always good to lie. I'm making a point of, being crude at that. So you get my drift. But Timothy goes like this. Remember that Jesus Christ of the sperma of David was raised from the dead according to my gospel. See what I'm saying? Then that was Paul and so-called Paul writings. Now if you go to John 7:42, this is what it says as well. These are all supposed to be interpreted as legit, like from an actual sexual union. Okay? And in John chapter 7 verse 42, the people are talking. Hath not the scripture said that Christ cometh of the sperma of David and out of the town of Bethlehem where David was? So you can see the context. It's not being metaphoric. It's not talking about plants, things like that. The context is people and their offspring. That's legit. Okay? It's not talking about my seed like some spiritual family, like I'm a preacher and these are my disciples, and you call, you're my seed or my descendants. You're my offspring. That's metaphoric. Had nothing to do with bringing them into existence. This is talking about the genuine physical sexual union offspring of David. Okay? It's very vividly clear. So what's the problem here? So you got all these issues. The Messiah of Judaism. Now let's get back to the Old Testament. The scriptures are very vividly clear. The true, genuine Mashiach must be conceived from a natural sexual union and a married union, that is, because a bastard cannot come into the assembly. Okay? So he has to be, like Genesis 49, from Judah. Got 2 Samuel 7, 1 Chronicles 17 and 22. He must be of the seed of David and Solomon. You go to Isaiah 11, he must be of Jesse. Okay? All those speak of a genuine descendant who sits on David's actual throne. Okay? So this whole virgin birth has to be thrown out. It's fake, it's delusional, and it's not even realistic. Okay? And another thing, it has nothing to do with really what I'm talking about, but I probably just throw it out there. Jesus was never a king. Okay? Like in Zechariah 9, it talks about, behold, your king rides lowly upon a donkey, a young donkey, a colt. Okay? They will take, the New Testament takes that verse and takes it way out of context as well. They just snip it, don't put it all there, just put little tidbits of it and make a narrative. Do you know how many sons of David probably rode a donkey into Jerusalem? Many. But the thing is, about this prophecy, the guy is already a king. Not spiritually, not metaphorically, a genuine king. And why is he triumphant and victorious? Because he just came from battle. That's why. Jesus was not coming from any battle, and he was no king. People maybe wanted him to be a king, but he was no king. The thing is, most people don't even know this. Most Christians literally don't know what Messiah means. Mashiach means one who's been anointed with actual oil, physically by oil. Not, that's what it means to be a genuine Mashiach, Messiah. So, the first Messiah of the Jewish people was Aaron the high priest. Okay? And all high priests after that. Every single king was a Mashiach. Every single one of them. Saul was the first one among us Jewish people. If you remember, David was running from Saul when he was still a general, and he had a chance, several times, in fact, to kill Saul. It says, and I'm paraphrasing, far be it from me to strike down the Lord's Mashiach. Okay? That's what he said. He's calling him the Messiah. That's because every king is a Messiah. Now when it comes to the Messiah, the foretold Messiah, this Messiah never ever dies. This is why when Christians say, oh, Jesus is Messiah, well, he died. He totally forfeits his even possibility. Okay? He was never a king. He was literally never anointed. Now, if anybody was going to anoint Jesus with actual oil to be a king, because Samuel, he anointed Saul. Samuel anointed David. Now, David didn't become king right away. He was on the run. Okay, until Saul died in war or in battle. That's when David became king. After that point. Okay? So, even if David didn't become king right away, he was still anointed. Nowhere in all the New Testament, Jesus is actually physically anointed. John the Baptist, the so-called prophet, never anoints Jesus. Ever. You don't hear about it, you don't see it, nothing. Okay? You have to be physically anointed. Jesus was not anointed to be king. Okay? Not even anointed to be king. Okay? So you don't have that. So Jesus was never anointed and he was never king. He didn't fulfill Zechariah 9 at all. Because the guy in Zechariah 9 was an actual king. Okay? Jesus was no king. And he died. The Jewish Mashiach never dies. You see this many times over. Daniel 2, he is the stone that was cut out of the mountain, took over the whole earth. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Okay? Doesn't die. Nowhere. Okay? He doesn't say that he's going to die and come back 2,000 years later. Okay? I'm just going to throw this in there because I got time. If you read Matthew 16, clearly, without throwing the metaphors in, without throwing all the junk in, just read it plainly, word for word, bit by bit. Don't erase anything. Take it for what it actually says. Jesus is a false prophet. What's it say? In Matthew 16, verse 27 and 28, he basically says he is going to come in his Father's glory and with his Father's angels to judge everyone, to give them their reward. And so he goes on to say, some of you standing here, that's present tense, and he's talking to his 12 disciples. Some of you, some, hear that? Some of you will not taste death. What's that mean? That means some of them will die and some of them will stay alive. It says some of you will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Okay? Point blank, verbatim words, literal words by what they say on the page. He basically said he will return while some of his disciples, I should say, he will return with God's angels to judge all men while some of his disciples, his original 12, are still alive. That's what it says, point blank. That didn't happen. They all died off. The whole generation died off. And plenty more after that died off. 2,000 years later, still waiting. He is not the Mashiach. He died, he failed, he was never anointed, he was never king, never born from a virgin. Okay? He is an absolute failure. But Christians don't like to read the Old Testament. Therefore, they don't have discernment. They take the New Testament. Grinds that, or parts of it, into their soul. And so when they do read some of the Old Testament, they interpret it by what the New Testament says, which is false. That's not your starting point. Your discernment and standard and the bar is the Old Testament. What that says is how you judge the New Testament. Okay? That's the proper way. Okay? It's like Mormons. Mormons do the same thing. They try to validate their Book of Mormon by tainting the New Testament. That's what Christians are doing. They try to validate the New Testament by tainting the Old Testament. Okay? Can't do that. Take the Old Testament, read it for what it is, so when you see someone come out and say, oh, this guy's the Messiah over here, this guy Jesus. Oh yeah? Doesn't look like it. Not doing anything. It's not lifting up a sword to knock out the Romans. And then the Romans knock him out. He's defeated. Now that knocks out the possibility of him being the Messiah, because the Messiah doesn't die. He lives forever. He conquers the whole earth. He sets up a theocratic kingdom. Or Paul he teaches that the law is done away with at Jesus' cross. According to the Torah, over and over and over and over and over again, the Torah is forever. The Messiah sets up a theocratic monarchy, and the Torah is the law of his kingdom, which lasts forever. We see this over and over again. Deuteronomy 17, the king shall make a copy of this law, meditate it, and do it every day of his life. And in Ezekiel 37, the sanctuary will be forever, and the Messiah will be forever, all doing the law. Okay? So Christianity is a hoax all the way through. It's false. Now hit the like and subscribe button. There you go.